He said, we've gone through this great struggle and we prayed continuously asking God to favor our cause. He says, how do we now that that cause has been met expect to build a country, a greater challenge than the one that we just went through, unless we ask his favor upon this group of people? And he called for them to pray, and they prayed daily. After he made that announcement, it wouldn't do any good at all. There'd be no point. Now, whether he was a Christian believing in Jesus as the Lord and God incarnate is questionable. He never wrote about anything like that in particular, whereas Thomas Jefferson did. And people don't like this. You've heard of the Jefferson Bible? Anybody heard of it's called the Jefferson Bible. And what it is it's a Bible that apparently or supposedly doesn't contain any miracles in it because he didn't believe in the miraculous Jesus. That's not it at all. And in fact, we have a document that he wrote to somebody explaining why he did this. He took all of the Gospels and he put them in harmony. All right? In other words, they fit into a logical order. You'll see the harmony of Gospels in some Bibles where he put them all in a harmony. And then he took out some of the more pronounced miracles, not all of the miracles. And the reason why he did, and he states this in a letter, is because the Indians would not understand these particular miracles. They wouldn't know how to put them in the context of their worldview. Okay? That's why he did the Jefferson Bible, was to evangelize the Indians. And he actually sent money to all of the territories and says to have the U.S. government pay for missionary, basically, buildings or structures to bring the Indians in and teach them about Christianity. But the reason why he took out those particular miracles is because it was something that would have conflicted with their worldview at the time. It had nothing to do with him being a deist. It had nothing. As a matter of fact, he wrote in one letter, he said, I am a Christian. And then he goes on to qualify what he means, just like we all do. I'm a Christian, I believe Jesus is Lord, or whatever. But he started out with the sentence saying, I am a Christian. So those two people are the two most pronounced, and yet both of them believed in a God that intervened in human history. In whatever capacity, Ben Franklin, we can't be dogmatic about it, but he did believe in a God that created and that you could intercede with. Anyway, so let's see here. Where are we? Go ahead. Number 6, somebody.
God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Okay, now, this is just me speculating. This is not anything that I've read in the commentary, but water is hydrogen and oxygen. It's two, in other words, it was part of what God had originally placed in the earth. For whatever reason, however he did the creation and whatever he did for the purpose of it. And what he did is he put a divide between the waters above and the waters below. So here's the earth, right? And then we can infer from the text that there were waters above. The word used in Hebrew is rekia, okay? And they call it a firmament, or some people call it, anybody got something other than a firmament in here? Anyway, the word is rekia, and we'll talk about what I believe the rekia is, and I believe it's a good analysis. I heard this on a creation discussion one time. It's very interesting, and as soon as we get to that particular word, which, there it is, it's right in that verse. Then God made the oh, no, that's the next verse. So he's dividing the waters from the water. Somebody go ahead and read 7.
And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. Okay, so we have this firmament, we have the firmament, the sky, and the waters above are the rekia, okay? Now, that remained until the time of the flood. And we can know that because of the terminology at the time of the flood, that rekia remained. What would be one of the benefits of having this, some people believe it was crystalline water. In other words, it was like frozen water that was up above the earth. What would be some of the benefits of having something like that you could imagine that if we had that today? Protection. Okay, right there, protection. That's probably the most pronounced thing, is that it would have allowed in the necessary light, but would have kept out things that are harmful to us today. Now, we live 70 or 80 years.
Psalm 90, whatever, says his days are 70, and if, I'm misquoting this, but if the Lord favors him, it's 80 years. But it would have kept out all of the harmful radiation which is being emitted from the sun and the cosmic whatever is going on out there. And another thing that is kind of interesting is, and I think I read this in a Jewish commentary, it may not have been that, but it actually would have allowed sounds from the cosmos to come in. You could actually hear, like we have these pulsars and things. Now, I don't know if this is true, but I remember reading this, and I wish that I could remember. I didn't even think of it until right now. It might have been Gerard Schroeder over in Israel. Somebody, somewhere along the line I heard this, is that the sounds, and you know, somewhere in the Psalms it speaks about the stars singing for joy or whatever, that these sounds could actually resonate off of this Requia. I wish I'd remember right now where that came from, but it would be interesting that the way that we perceive the cosmos would be entirely different if that's true. So right now, you know, we can hear these sounds if we use, you know, amplification or whatever, but that's just kind of an interesting thing. I don't want to be dogmatic about it, but it's just something I remember picking up along the way. So let's see, verse 7, it says, "And it divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament." It was so. Okay, somebody read 8.
And God called the expanse heaven. And there was evening and there was morning, a second day.
The second day. Okay, real quickly now, just so that we'll get to this eventually, but what was the first day of creation? Anybody know? The first day. Okay, what we have here is we know that the seventh day is a Saturday, right? So we just backdate it up. Friday, and then we have Thursday, and then we have Wednesday, and then we have we'll call this, I said that was Sunday right there. Anyway, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. So the first day of creation was a Sunday, and we know that, okay? And then different things are happening based on this, but this is the second day, which would be a Monday. All right. Now, I was just about to make a point on this. Hang on, verse 8, and so God called heaven. All right, well, remember at the beginning it says that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Hashemayim, the heavens. All right, well, now he's calling this the heaven. So the fact that verse 1 says that he created the heavens and the earth, and not until the second day does he actually call it the heavens, that tells you that Genesis 1:1 is a description of what he is doing, and the rest of it is a breakdown of that description. Same thing as, you've ever heard somebody say that the Bible has two creation accounts, Genesis 1 and Genesis 2? It's the same creation account. Genesis 2 is the same creation account as Genesis 1. It's just breaking it down, and it's giving us detailed information. And that's exactly what's happening as we go through these days, is it is a detailed breakdown of Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So on the second day, he created what we would call heaven. All right? Now, there are different levels of heaven, and some people get a little bit goofy about this. I don't know if you've ever read some of these things. There's a first heaven, a second heaven, a third heaven, and all these different things. And Paul speaks of the third heaven when he, in the book of Corinthians, when he says, I think it's 14, or anyway, I knew a man 14 years ago that whether it was in the body or out of the body, I do not know. He was taken up and saw inexpressible things. And I think he says he went to the third heaven. And so some people say that's where we're going when we die. Whatever. Okay, we can infer that, but we can't be dogmatic about it. He's just making a point that he was in this place, he heard these inexpressible things and things that he can't tell us, but he gave us a few insights into it, and it's probably a good bet that it is where we go when we die. And that if you backdate that to the book of Acts, it was the point where Paul was stoned, and they dragged his body out of the city and thought he was dead. And so they believe that is when that occurred, is when he was stoned by the group. And where was that? That was in, anybody? What?
Lystra?
Lystra and Derbe. I don't think it was Lystra. It was, anyway, he went up to the third heaven there. But people will write books about heaven. What is heaven like? And they'll write books about the Nephilim. You know who the Nephilim are? That we're going to get to them in the Genesis account. Right, the sons of God. People will write books about these things, and there are only a couple verses in the entire Bible that cover these particular issues. So when you read a book
that is 300 pages long about something that only has 2 or 3 references, take it with skepticism, okay? It's just me. I'm the least person to read a lot of books about things that, you know, the feasts of the Lord. They're very interesting, and you can get a lot of information out of Leviticus 23, but there is a point where people are either being redundant in their book or they're writing things that are total speculation. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, that was 8. Go ahead and somebody read 9. Hi, Ken. Hi, Regina. Yeah, verse 9. Yeah, I told you, once we get going, we just really start, you know, the first couple days I wanted to set a baseline. So the rest of it's just going to be like a regular Sunday morning Bible study, where we just go verse by verse. And as I said, anybody that has any questions or anything, that's what makes it interesting, is the back and forth. And I'm really sick today, so I'm not feeling well. And so if I'm lacking my regular zeal, forgive me. Go ahead. Somebody read 9.
God says that the water under the sky be gathered to one place and let dry ground appear. And it was so.
Okay, so there is coming up in a chapter or two, there is coming up the naming of a guy named Peleg. All right, anybody know what the name Peleg means right offhand? Divide. Okay, so there are 2 possibilities. Actually, I said this, I was over at, if anybody knows who Neville Gritt is, he was the pastor of the Tabernacle for many, many years. One of the greatest speakers I've ever heard. Now he's got Parkinson's, and so yeah, I go over and visit him and just talk to him. But I was over there this week, and his son was there, and he asked me about the Nephilim. He says, you know, who do you say the Nephilim are? And I said, well, there's 3 possibilities. And he said something that is absolutely right. There's one possibility. The Bible has one truth in it. There are 3 interpretations, but there's only one possibility. Same thing with Peleg, and I can't be dogmatic. There's two possibilities or interpretations of Peleg. Okay, here we have the earth, and we've got, we'll say that's Pangaea. Anybody know what Pangaea is? It's the supposed single continent that existed on Earth, and then eventually the continent separated, and that's why Africa kind of fits into one place in South America, and they believe it was all one land at one time, okay? And then eventually the land was divided into what we have now. That's South America. I know it's a terrible South America, and then we have North America, and they're connected here, and then you've got Europe over here, and whatever, Africa down here. And anyway, so that's the way it is now. The name Peleg says the land was divided at that time. Does that mean that the land was divided into continents, or the land was divided by people? In other words, we know where Gomer and Togarmah and all of these people that are going to come against Israel in the latter days are based on the forefathers' names, right? We have Gog and Magog, we've got Togarmah, we've got all of these different people, and we know where the general area of those people is. What does it mean when it says that the land was divided and so his name was Peleg? Some people will say that it means the land mass, and some people will say that it just simply means that the land was divided by the peoples. Okay, keep that in mind. We can go through it in the future. If anybody has any idea on that, you know, bring it up, or if you are reading anything and you study it, bring it up, because I've never really studied that particular issue other than that point. But it does say here that on this particular day in verse 9, that the waters were gathered into one place, and out appeared the dry land. As I said, each of these things could have been done immediately. God could have just simply created it. All right? But he's doing it over a period of time for a reason. And I don't want to get ahead of the reason, but this is where the dry land appears, and it was so. He spoke, and it stood firm. Okay, verse 10, somebody?
And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Okay,
now there are 2 words that are normally used for earth in the Bible. One is Eretz, which is in Genesis 1:1, and one of them is Tebel, T-E-B-E-L. I'm not a specialist on which is which. I wish Will Groban was here and he could tell you, the guy that he's in our church, and he went off to Dallas to study Greek and Hebrew. What's that? He'll be back soon. Yeah, oh, sure he will. But anyway, Eretz is quite often applied to the land of Israel. In other words, if you go to the internet, you go to Haaretz, which is the land. All right? And that's speaking of the land of Israel. It's a publication like the Jerusalem Post. It's just another newspaper they publish over there, Haaretz. Whereas Tebel will almost always mean
the earth as a whole. Anyway, I do believe that the word here is eretz, and I could check it in Strong's. I'm not going to bother right now.